Good morning. And how are you today? I'm trying to set this up and get it ready for fall. I think we're about ready. I'm in front of my fireplace, which I haven't decided to have a fire yet, but you never know. Anyway, happy fall, everybody. It was definitely cooler last night. By about 6 o'clock, it was starting to get dark. It's kind of dark all day long, though. I'm looking out there and it is definitely changing, and we can feel it. Not quite in the bones yet, but pretty soon. Anyway, happy fall to all of you. Let's get right to the news for this week. We're looking at calendar themes, and it's the last week of September. You can believe it, 2021 is almost 3/4 of the way done. And this has been the fall equinox this past week, where the earth is not tilted towards the sun, so it would be summer. It's not tilted away from the sun, so it would be winter. It is straight up, and we had an equal 12 hours of light and 12 hours of dark. And so now we're heading from the fall equinox and we're heading into the holiday season. Of course, we have Halloween and Thanksgiving and Christmas and many, many joyous times with friends and family to look forward to. All right, so we're starting with September 26th, California Native Americans Day. And September is Native Americans Month. And they've had some wonderful features on public broadcast TV, PBS. I don't know if you got to see any of those. A lot of times I tape them and then I watch them later in the evening when I am able to do that. The other thing that I'm always reminded of, or the other person, is Johnny Appleseed. Johnny Appleseed was born John Chapman in 1774. And we're going to talk some more about him. And also, we want to salute the Gold Star mothers who lost a son or daughter in one of the numerous wars in which our country has been involved. So that is September 26th. September 27th starts with kind of a crazy one, Crush a Can Day. I guess that's to remind you to recycle all your soda cans. The first steam locomotive train began running in 1825, and that was almost 200 years ago. It is World Tourism Day. There are a few cruise ships out there steaming away. I had some friends who returned from one of the first runs up to Alaska. Canada is still not open for visitors from outside their country, however. So there's still a lot of COVID-19 rules for people on cruises, and I don't think there's any tour groups going outside this country yet. In 1972, Anacleto Montero Sanchez, probably haven't heard of him, received a patent for a hypodermic syringe. And that's what they use when they're giving shots now. And that just came out in 1972. It makes the shot a lot smoother. Doesn't hurt quite so much to get poked. On September 28th is Good Neighbor Day. Say hello to your neighbor as you're out walking. The first airport opened in 1909. William the Conqueror invaded England this day, September 28th, in 1066. I think he surprised the people in the area for invading in such a late time of year, but that's when he did it. It is also National Sons Day, where you do something special with one of your sons if they're around. It was National Daughters Day last week on the 25th, but now here it is National Sons Day on the 28th. The 29th, the United States Army was established in 1789 after the Navy. And it is International Coffee Day. And you'll see me with a mug pretty soon. Still drinking cool drinks, water today. Color coordinated cup. Trying to have good sets for you when I record. And September 30th, the safety pin was invented in 1849. And I remember the great big ones about this long that I used on my first child's diapers when I thought I would be a good mom and use cloth diapers. But after about 3 months of that, when they brought out the Pampers, they called them, and they were the paper diapers that had several layers of material in them, and you could stick them together, and it was like a tape, and it would not come unglued. Then the safety pin. Now I just use safety pins in sewing, or to maybe pin a hem up if I don't have time to do any mending. And the other things for September, we know that it was Baby Safety Month, American Breakfast Month, Cable TV Month, Classical Music Month, Library Card Sign Up Month, and National Chicken Month and National Courtesy Month. So that is our calendar themes for the 4th week. And now we're moving on, and we're going to look at the first person, which is Johnny Appleseed. I have a picture of him here. This is an old picture. I don't know if you can see it. Get a look at him right there. That's what he looked like in the 1840s. Had a big white beard. That was in his early 40s, I believe. He was the man who was he has an interesting life. I think we'll just start at the very beginning and go. He was born in 1774 in Massachusetts. He was the second child of Nathaniel and Elizabeth Chapman. And his birthplace has a granite marker, and there's now a street there called Johnny Appleseed Lane. But there are many Johnny Appleseed museums and parks throughout the states in which he planted apples. His mother died in childbirth after giving birth to the second son, Nathaniel Jr., when Johnny was about 5 years old. His father, who had been in the military and was fighting during the American Revolutionary War, returned in 1780 and married a new lady, Lucy Cooley, and they had several children also, which is what they did in those days. Had lots and lots of kids. By the time that John was 18 years old, he persuaded his stepbrother, who was 11 and a half, Nathaniel, to go west with him. And they went out and began wandering and working odd jobs and exploring and camping out and just living the wildlife. They did that for 13 or 14 years. Then John Chapman's father moved out west and moved his large family to Ohio and bought a farm there. Nathaniel decided that he wanted to stay and work the farm with his father, but Johnny was not done yet with the vagabond life. And so he became an apprentice to an orchardist man, a Mr. Crawford. We don't know his first name. And that man had apple orchards, and the rest, as they say, is history. John learned a lot. His nickname was Johnny. He planted nurseries rather than orchards, and everywhere he went, Pennsylvania, he was in the Washington, D.C. area. He got a lot of his seeds from the cider mills there at the Potomac River in that area. He lived in Pittsburgh for a while, but he would plant nurseries and he would build fences around them to keep the livestock out. And he'd leave the nurseries in the care of a neighbor who would sold trees as shares from the property. And he would return every year or two to tend the nursery, harvest the apples, get more seeds, and continue planting wherever he thought settlers were going to eventually settle. He was like a real estate man. He was very, very shrewd. He bought and sold land that had the trees on it, because in order for someone to claim the land, the law said you had to plant a certain number of apple trees and then another certain number of a different kind of fruit tree to prove that you were serious about settling there and you were not just a speculator. Well, the story of Johnny Appleseed almost had a tragic ending. In 1819 in Ohio, one morning he was picking hops in a tree when he fell and caught his neck in the fork of the tree. Shortly after he fell, and he's hanging by his neck. One of his helpers, 8-year-old John White, found him struggling in the tree. The young boy was not able to get him out of the tree, but he was a quick thinker. So he cut the tree down with an axe and saved Chapman's life. Whew. Well, he became a missionary as well as a storyteller and a man sowing apple seeds wherever he went. He joined a branch of the Christian faith, the Swedenborgian branch, which was an offshoot, was not in mainstream Christianity. But what he would do is he would travel around and meet settlers, and he was a people lover, a gregarious man who loved to tell stories and laugh and share apple cider with his neighbors. You know, in those days, apple cider was more valuable than water, which they didn't know about sterilizing it in those days, and to keep from dying from water that had bad stuff in it, people drank a weaker form of apple cider. And it would make them even more jovial as they drank it, because they would drink hard cider. But that's one of the things that was really important to pioneers to live and survive. And here's what one of the neighbors recalled. This is actually a quote from one of them. We can hear him read now, just as he did that summer day when we were busy quilting upstairs and he lay near the door, his voice rising, thrilling, strong and loud as the roar of wind and waves, then soft and soothing as the balmy airs that quivered the morning glory leaves about his gray beard. His was a strange eloquence at times, and he was undoubtedly a man of genius. This was reported by a lady who knew him in his 50s and 60s and 70s, his later years. He made several trips back east to visit his sister and to replenish his supply of Swedenborgian literature, the tracts that he handed out everywhere he went. He preached the gospel as he traveled and converted many Native Americans whom he admired. The Native Americans regarded him as someone touched by the Great Spirit, and even the hostile tribes left him strictly alone. One cool autumn night, excuse me, while lying by his campfire in the woods, he noticed that mosquitoes were flying into the blaze and being burned. Johnny, who wore on his head a tin utensil, which answered both as a cap and a pot for his morning oatmeal mush, filled it with water and quenched the fire, and afterwards remarked, God forbid that I should build a fire for my comfort that should be the means of destroying any of his creatures. He cared deeply about all animals and creatures, even the insects. And he was also a vegetarian. Another time, He made a campfire in a snowstorm at the end of a hollow log in which he was going to pass the night, but he found it occupied by a bear and her cubs. So he removed his fire to the other end and slept on the snow in the open air rather than disturb the bear. He also had a pet wolf that had started following him after he healed its injured leg. Another time he heard that a horse was going to be put down. So he bought the horse, bought a few grassy acres nearby, and turned it out to recover. When it did, he gave the horse to someone needy, exacting a promise to always treat it humanely. He never married. He thought he might find his soulmate in heaven someday. And then in 1845, he died, although there are several different accounts of when and where he died. But he was supposedly buried in the family cemetery with the Archers. And so that's where he died. And what was his legacy besides settling the country in advance of all the many pioneers who came out later? Well, we know that he left an estate of over 1,200 acres of valuable nurseries to his sister. He also owned 4 plots in Indiana and 2 plots in Mount Vernon, Ohio. He bought a southwest quarter in Ashland County, Ohio, but he never had time to record the deed and he lost that land. The Johnny Appleseed Festival has been held in Fort Wayne, Indiana, ever since 1975, held the 3rd full weekend in September. So if they're having the festival this year, and I truly hope they are, then that probably just finished. He has several high school athletic leagues named after him, and there is a minor league baseball group, the Fort Wayne Tin Caps, referring to the tin hat or pot which Johnny Appleseed wore on his head. There's a stamp that came out with his picture on it. I want to go back even further, and apples were so valuable to our country. We know that settlers brought them to the United States from England. And in 1724, P. Dudley, in his Philosophical Transactions newspaper, wrote, "The growing trees make a rough cabin seem less stark, more akin to the remembered cottage of merry old England, of Kent or Surrey. And in a few years, when the fruit finds its way to the table, it becomes a staple of our meager diet." There was only one indigenous apple from America. That was a sour crab apple, was nothing like the sweet apples of Europe. So people brought different apples, and the first apple orchard was brought by a clergyman, William Blackstone, in 1625 to Massachusetts, the first apple orchard. And the French who came down from Canada, they planted apple trees in parts of Maine. By the 1790s, the Cayuga and Seneca Indians planted several apple orchards in the Great Lakes area. They grew apple trees from a bud grafted onto another stock tree, and they dried the fruit to preserve it for the long winter months. In the Carolina Highlands, settlers found apple orchards surrounding the Creek, Cherokee, and Choctaw villages. The French missionaries had taught them how to plant apple trees. Unfortunately, the United States Army destroyed their villages and wiped out acres and acres of apple trees at that time. In 1866, apple colonists grew Maines, Pippins, Russentenses, costards, marigolds, kings, and bachelors, and only 3 of those species still exist today. Landowners in the South, such as Washington and Jefferson, dabbled in scientific agriculture and preserved some of the seeds, which show us today what was grown 300 years ago. Scientists have tried to reintroduce some of the older apples. Apples were used as food, drink, forage for animals, wood for whittling, small machine parts, and fragrant firewood. Wives made, and people still do, apple butter, conserves, jellies, sun-dried fruit, and vinegar for medicinal and cleansing purposes. And how do we use apples today? Apple custard, brown Betty with bread, apple crunch, apple crisp, Swedish apple dessert, apple pie, apple butter, and apple dumplings. So hooray for our apples. And now there's one more thing I wanted to talk about on this lovely, but still pretty cloudy and dark day. That is the fact that California also celebrates this month as Hispanic Heritage Month. It actually runs from September 15 to October 15. And on September 25th, explorer Vasquez de Balboa discovered a brand new ocean, the Pacific Ocean, with his group of Spanish explorers. That day, the water was peaceful, so he named the body of water the Pacific Ocean. This is an illustration from many, many years ago that I wanted you to see. Here he is. He's claiming the Pacific, claiming it for Spain. Spain ran all of California, half of Oregon, what was called Alta California, and then Baja goes down into Mexico. And from Mexico City, the Spanish ruled until the 1840s when Mexico became independent. And because of the Hispanic heritage, with many explorers from Florida all the way on over to California, the land was controlled, the whole southern half of our country, by France and Spain, and later Mexico City. The Catholic fathers built missions. Later, when Mexico took over the land in the 1840s, the missions were closed, the Indians were turned out, and ranches or rancheros were given to elite and aristocratic Spanish settlers. And the rancheros is what I want to talk about today. And then later, the people who lived there, as California got its independence from Mexico, but was not a part of the United States yet, the people were called Californios. And it's such a rich history. Well, I happened to write a reader's theater when I was teaching. At that time, I was teaching fourth graders, which study the history of California. It's good for us to kind of do a rerun of it. It's been a long time since we've looked at that. So here we go. Narrator 1. Living on a huge land grant in early 1800s California, called a rancho, held more than a little excitement. And the title of my reader's theater is Never a Dull Moment on a Rancho. And that's pretty true. There were Indians, not all of them friendly. There were earthquakes, which they called shakers. And there were pirates. Yes, pirates. This is the tale of one gigantic shaker and one dreaded pirate, the notorious Hippolyte Bouchard, who is French. Our true story takes place on the Rancho Nuestra Senora del Refugio, our land of refuge ranch. Now, what interest could this fiery Frenchman and his buccaneers possibly have in 26,529 acres of desert and sagebrush? Plenty of interest, and this story takes place between Central California and Southern California, not too far from where you are right now. Pirates sailed up and down the California coast, bringing fear and destruction to many of the early Californios. There were no sheriffs or policemen or nearby army soldiers ready to defend these brave settlers. The capital city and government were thousands of miles away in Mexico City, still controlled by Spain, halfway round the world. The Santa Barbara Presidio up north held only a few soldiers, and that small fort was at least a good 20 miles away. It was too far to help much. It was every man and woman and child for themselves. Rancho El Refugio means the place of safety, but it was not really all that safe, as Jose Francisco Ortega, the owner, can tell you. Here's Ortega speaking. I was a soldier who came to Alta California with Captain Gaspar Portolo's first expedition in 1769. I saw the San Francisco Bay for the first time with the other Spaniards. I founded the San Francisco Presidio in 1776 and helped start Mission Santa Barbara, the queen of the missions, 10 years later. Then it was time to settle down. El Refugio was to be my place of peace and quiet, and he had plenty of vaqueros, the Spanish word for cowboys, to help keep peace on his land. Here's Ayers. My name is Captain George Washington Ayers, skipper of the trading ship Mercury out of Boston. We often sailed round to El Refugio Bay, usually at night, to trade food, furniture, medicines, dry goods, and tools, trading for the cattle hides and tallow made from cattle's fat. Here's a sailor. I remember that fearful day very well. The date was December 21st, 1812. Here's Ayers. The Mercury was lying at anchor in 36 feet of water when the quake hit. Suddenly, a giant wave lifted our ship and swept us toward the shoreline. Sailor. But we did not crash. Instead, the mighty wave carried us inland into a canyon. I thought for sure we were all going to die. Ayers. We were stranded far from the shore, but then the huge wave began to retreat back into the bay. Thanks be to God, our ship was not damaged as the wave carried us along. Narrator. The quake of December 21, 1812 was to be known as the worst earthquake and tidal wave ever recorded in the Santa Barbara area. Captain Ayers had been in Little Refugio Bay with his crew, trading for skins, but few people knew that. It was against the law of Spain to trade with others, especially foreign governments like the United States. Ayers. Yes, I admit we were hiding in the bay under the moon as smugglers in the eyes of the Spanish government. Narrator. Perhaps it was the successful trade by smugglers at El Refugio that led the pirate Hippolyte de Bouchard to the bay in 1818. The buccaneers came ashore at El Refugio and damaged the Ortega ranch. But most of the people had already fled inland to the hills for safety. Worker. Hurry, load up those bags of grain quickly before the pirates get here. Padre. Let's take the gold and holy relics from the chapel with us so the pirates cannot steal them. Woman. Oh, saints above, hurry, children. Grab the chickens and some blankets. We must get away before Bouchard arrives. Ortega. We transported our personal family gold and silver valuables in 3 Spanish chests. Later, those chests would be on display in the Santa Ynez Museum. Worker. We gathered our people together at the crest of the nearby hills. We watched from up there what happened next. Padre. Many of the padres, that's the Catholic priests, along with small groups of Indians we had gathered together, watched as the enemy robbed and destroyed the ranch buildings. Worker. Some of us met soldiers from the Santa Barbara Presidio and other troops returning from battling Bouchard in Monterey, where he burned everything. There were not enough to defeat the hundreds of pirates coming off Bouchard's 2 giant vessels. Woman. I heard that a band of Californios rolled huge boulders down a hill and crushed 5 pirates. Ortega. A group of vaqueros or cowboys cannot easily stand by and watch our ranch be destroyed. They managed to capture 3 of the pirates who had strayed from the others in search of a cart to carry their loot. Padre. One of the captives was a man named John Chapman, another John Chapman. He claimed to have been kidnapped by Bouchard's men while working on the waterfront in Honolulu, Hawaii, and forced against his will to serve as a pirate. Worker. The vaqueros could not understand his English. They were so angry they decided to kill him on the spot, either by hanging or dragging him behind a horse. Ortega. But my beautiful daughter, Guadalupe, threw herself in front of the condemned man, declaring she loved him and would not leave his side. They would have to kill her too. Narrator. Ortega was impressed by the bravery of his daughter and her affection for the handsome captive. He ordered the man freed. Yet some say Chapman had really snuck off the ship during all the burning and looting and hidden at Mission Santa Ynez, about 11 miles inland. Ortega. Well, whatever version you believe, Senor Chapman or Jose el Ingles, Joseph the Englishman, worked hard at several of the missions with his carpentry skills. He was respected and liked by all who knew him. Padre. Joseph Chapman and Guadalupe Ortega really did get married in 1822 at the Santa Ynez Mission. Woman. People from miles around attended the wedding ceremony. The feasting lasted for several days with games, racing, and dancing. Ortega. Ah, yes. It was a truly beautiful occasion. And I did finally get some peace and quiet at El Refugio, although I knew it would not last forever in this exciting land of California. The end. Well, I didn't have time to cover the Moon Festival, a Chinese celebration celebrated around this time of year, and it's a really big deal at USC down by Los Angeles. There's an autumn harvest where they serve moon cakes, and they enjoy doing regional dances from different areas of China. So the Mid-Autumn Festival, and it has been observed since the time of ancient China. And in addition to, it's a very romantic holiday. Chang'e flew to the moon during that holiday, and there are other legends and stories related to the grand festival and moon cake uprising, which has to do with fighting over the moon cakes. And that's it for this wonderful, cool autumn day. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Indian summer is coming with more hot weather up ahead. Bye, everybody. Stay safe. You notice how everyone says that now. Stay safe, stay happy, and remember you are loved.